and it's going to surprise you.
Let's see you say what's going. Look, let's see you. I kind of want to know how I got them really close to the 90s for that time.
How much cheaper my shit was when I was technically afraid of it because my mom didn't like it.
You're the most stupid thing. I'm not tired of you.
Researching reptiles on the internet by just typing it in and it automatically shows up, and then when you're ready to buy, you type in the species and then a bunch of listings show up and then it ships to your door overnight is kind of crazy if you think about it. Especially if you consider the reptile hobby goes all the way back to the early 1900s, maybe before that, but really not that common until about the 60s, 70s, into the 90s. And I think the 90s is a time we can all identify with. A lot of us were born then or right after. Some people think that I'm a dinosaur because my birth year starts with 19, but either way,
No, not everybody was born in the 90s.
1990s were an interesting time because it was the time right before the internet, the last of the old days, and in many cases, the Wild West. So when I said I did research, I've talked to a lot of guys over the years that I've been very privileged to speak to. Guys like Tom Mason and Bob Applegate and these OGs of the reptile community. But of course, there's this guy. This is Tom Crutchfield. And no matter what you hear on the internet, a very infamous guy, the reptile hobby wouldn't be where it is without him. And although I've had limited conversations with him, I did find one of his old lists from back in the day.
No, all these guys that are like
a long time ago.
Anywhere from
but to put this in perspective, this was
10 to 20 years older than us don't exist.
Yeah, we don't either.
So, what did it look like 32 years ago, January 1994, to buy a reptile? Well, let's go through the list, but before we do, put it into context. So you get a list with a bunch of species, and what you notice is
everybody,
photos attached.
That would be 3 months before my grandpa died.
Everybody watching is from 1990.
You can't just see the photos and then send a quick message, hey, email me more photos or ask questions. You have to get on the phone, call Tom or Adam or whoever's going to pick up the phone, ask the question. And if it's a high ticket item that you're going to buy, spend thousands of dollars on, because some of these are
He don't know what he's talking about.
Picture, which means that we have to mail you pictures. So from your Kodak camera, you go, you take the pictures, then you have to go get them developed, and then back and forth. It might take weeks to make a deal, where today it can be done in 10 minutes. Right off the bat, poisonous reptiles. To me, this is funny because these animals aren't poisonous. There's no keelbacks on here. These are venomous reptiles. I don't actually know why they were called this. I've asked a few people if that's just what they called them back then, I guess. But it is kind of crazy that these animals, a lot of them, I mean, there's rattlesnakes on here for $25. So adjusted for inflation, we're talking about 55 bucks. But still, $55 in today's dollars for a rattlesnake that you can just order on the phone? That's insane to me. But let's start with some common stuff and show how the prices are similar and different. So for example, Colombian red-tailed boas on this list. $150 to 225 bucks, I think it was. So we're talking about $605 or so for Colombian red-tails. Now, it depends what they mean, because even the Latin names a lot have changed. Especially, I have a list from 1977. If you want to see a video on that list, that's even great. There's Fiji banded iguanas on it that are legal from Pennsylvania. Let me know in the comments section if you want that. But my point is, This is a Colombian red tail. Is this truly a South American boa? Or sometimes there was Central Americans that were passed off. So is it so it really depends on the price, what we're talking about here. And then water gets really muddy with these names. So I mean 600 is kind of expensive for a boa. If we're talking about if it was Central American boas, like the common boas, those now you can buy for like $50 at expos all day long. So it's kind of interesting how it's very similar to today, but if we're looking at big price differences, Emerald Tree Boa right below that on the list, $325. So these are the northern Emerald Tree Boas, I imagine, looking at the Latin name, it should be. So we're talking about $725-ish in today's dollars, which is a great price. I mean, they are much more expensive now, even for the northerns, than $725. And also, back then, the laws were different. I mean, a lot of them were still, but the quotas were different, things opened up, closed down. And all that means is, if I say something like, the Philippines is shut, that just means the Philippines doesn't send any more of those animals. I don't know why I use the Philippines. Emerald Tree Boas would be from Suriname or Guyana, places like that. One I found interesting was the ball pythons. Now keep in mind, 94, this is before the ball python craze happened. I would say that started around 99. This is open to interpretation, of course. We're like, I'm not saying a hard date here. But when we started getting a bunch of morphs in, and it became a big thing to get as many genetics as possible, that was around the end of the 90s, early 2000s. So 94, these are, I have to assume, these are ball pythons that have been imported, which these animals are like, what, $25 on the list? So this is $55 for presumably a normal ball python, where now, I mean, I would never pay $55. They'll wild caught. Never mind captive bred. Captive bred normals, you can buy at expos for people who just don't want them and they had to produce half of the clutch being normals for $5 or free, 10 or $25. But $55 for a normal ball python, nobody's paying that. So it's crazy how the price is so different. But keep in mind also, not everybody and their brother was breeding ball pythons back then like they are now. And the morphs were very few and far between. Remember, the first pied ball pythons sold for 6 figures, where now they're $300. Now keep in mind, back in the day, this is like the 80s or so, pied ball pythons were just kind of like throwaways because they were ugly. So it's kind of interesting how things became really expensive and then cheap. But at the beginning, pieds were nothing. People didn't want them because they were like abstract and they didn't look right. And then all of a sudden people realized that they're recessive, and then anyway, the point is the trends are just this is really interesting nerd stuff. Rhino iguanas for $2,400 a pair, which is about $5,500 in today's dollars, which is crazy because now you can buy rhino iguanas for like $300. So keep in mind, on the list, I think that this was a breeding or a breeder couple. So it might be a little bit expensive today for something like that, but it wouldn't be $5,500, which is cool because this is Tom's list, and as a Tom still keeps, rhino iguanas are some of them. And I know that because I listened to him on a podcast very recently. I see brevicorns on here, so elephant ear chameleons. Now, this is cool. I found these in Madagascar, and when I asked Bill about them, he said they're almost never bred in captivity, and then if you find them in captivity in the US or other parts of the world, generally it's really rare to find and they're kind of expensive. On the list, they're $35. So it just kind of shows you that there's animals that used to be pretty, not popular, but easily accessible, where now, if you wanted that same animal, it's really hard to find and really expensive. And we're getting into some of those that are just going to blow your mind that they're even on the list. Like the Solomon Island skinks, otherwise known as the monkey tail skinks, which I've had, I love them, they were cool, but I promise you they were $85 when I bought them. So just...
Pure Garum is that too pure. Can't be ascertained.
Relief pain and congestion. Clear sinus pressure.
I don't know.
Now in one powerful duo. Be cold and sinus symptom.
The Virgil was built in 1924. Today, it's one of the favorite buildings in Manhattan. With such well
Adjusted for inflation, we're just under $200 here, but still, I think they're I think I sold my pair for like $3,000 in today's dollars. So the price is just absolutely crazy. I actually don't know if Farm Islands are sending any more out or not, or if they're shut. But I know that they're difficult to breed, and then when you do breed them, you get one baby, and generally you can only breed a female every other year. Now, of course, there's exceptions. I'm not an expert, but this means that it's hard to get babies from them, and that's why they're expensive. Plus, captive bred babies will always sell for more than wild caught babies for a million reasons, and you can watch a video right here if you don't understand. I can painfully tell you from my own experience. And then there's the animals that were really expensive that now are cheap, like yellow anaconda. Yellow anacondas on the list was like $1,000, $11.75, which in today's dollars is $25.85. A yellow anaconda now, I got one in a trade for a corn snake. Yeah, they're like a few $100, maybe. Like this is of course on the list. This is an adult, so it'd be a little bit more expensive. The yellow anacondas now, just like normal yellows, are not sought after. They're not expensive. They're not hard to come by. That back then they were really expensive, which is kind of crazy because yellow anacondas are not great pets. They're experts, maybe, but not for me. And for the crazy stuff, blue tongue skins. Blue tongue skins on the list, I think they're at $275 on this list, so it just $300. Now I actually have a list from Indo, and they're like 100 and change. So the price has gone way down. And keep in mind, blue tongues, this is wild caught versus wild caught, are difficult to breed. You don't really know until maybe some genetic testing comes out, a male versus a female. It's really difficult to tell anyway. So you kind of have to buy several, and then it's really complicated in comparison to a lot of other species. Okay, now the stuff that really surprised me. On the list is a false Gary